Thank you very much indeed for welcoming me here tonight. And wasn't it good to have that heckler outside? Sometimes in the Conservative Party these days, it seems so irrelevant that you're actually pleased to be heckled when you walk into events. But it is good to be here. And sorry I was a little bit late. I've been doing my shadow justice work today. Keir Starmer has given me an incredible gift, and he's called David Lammy. So my opponent now is a man who somehow has found himself in the long line of Lord Chancellors from Thomas More to the present day. I don't know if you've seen his appearance on Mastermind, but it is truly one of the worst ever performances. As my 14-year-old daughter said to me, "Daddy, he's not a celebrity and he's certainly not a mastermind." The first question that stands out to me was when he was asked, which blue cheese is good to pair with port? And he said red Leicester. And then exactly. The second question he was asked was, which Marie won the Nobel Prize for Science? And he said, Marie Antoinette. And then to top it all, he was asked, which monarch succeeded Henry VIII? And he said Henry VII. Well, this man, ladies and gentlemen, is now our Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary. But he is a great example to the youth of today as to exactly what you can achieve in life in this country. But I am using my role to hold him to account and to make the argument, which you may have seen me make over the course of this year, that unfortunately we live in a country that is increasingly marked by two-tier justice, where there are differential treatments depending on the colour of your skin, the faith that you abide by, whether you're a man or a woman, by ludicrous things like whether you've been subject to intergenerational unfairness. You saw this with the two-tier sentencing guidelines that we revealed at the beginning of this year and then forced the Labour government to overturn and have to pilot emergency legislation through Parliament to undo something they themselves had signed off on. Well, I don't know about you, but I believe in equality before the law, which does not mean equity, as David Lammy would say, whereby diversity targets and equality of treatment has to be at the forefront of our minds, but actually that everyone should be treated the same before the law. That's a conservative principle. That's how we see the rule of law, and that is what we are standing up for. I've also been pursuing activist judges. I don't know if there are any judges here tonight. No? Good. I have to ask that question these days. Just to prove the point, I'm actually being sued by an activist judge who took offence at me calling her an activist judge. I'm not sure how this is going to go down, but she's trying it on. But look, I think our judges generally have been amongst the most independent and of the highest quality of any country in the world. But a minority in recent years are now bringing the whole system into disrepute. And we have uncovered time and again this year judges who are bringing their politics into their job. Judges who are tweeting that they don't like this Conservative politician or that. Judges who are saying they want to repeal laws. Well, that's not the role of the judiciary. Judges are there to apply the law, not to make the law. And we've even found judges who are on the board of trustees of open borders charities like Care for Calais. And under this ludicrous poacher-turned-gamekeeper system that we have, particularly in our immigration tribunals, where you have part-time judges, you could have a left-wing judge at a left-wing chambers like Garden Court or Doughty Street or Matrix Chambers, only representing asylum seekers, doing that day in, day out, doing it in the morning, then going for lunch, and then in the afternoon, being on the other side, being the judge. Not in the same case, but hearing cases. And then mysteriously being the judges who come to these ludicrous decisions, like somebody can't be deported because of their mental health, or because they don't want their beard to be cut off if they're sent back to a country, or that their kids don't like chicken nuggets. Now, of course, it's difficult to determine exactly whether they brought their politics into their judgment. But what is abundantly clear is this is destroying public trust in our criminal justice system. And you see it now in polls where people say that, I think 1 in 3 people say they don't think our criminal justice system is unbiased. Well, that's wrong. And we want to change that. So I've been saying, and we're going to say more in the coming weeks, about how we appoint judges to weed out all of this political activism, and how we sack judges, frankly. Because of course we believe in security of tenure. But if you engage in political activism, you should be out. You should be out. Because it is simply wrong. If you want to be a politician, stand for Parliament. Don't become a judge. And the broader point that I've been making, and one which I think goes right back through the Conservative tradition to Margaret Thatcher, and indeed before her, is that at the absolute heart of our conception of our constitution is parliamentary sovereignty. And I don't want parliamentary sovereignty to be undermined so that you end up with activist judges making the law. And actually, we can have activist judges as much in this country as you can in Strasbourg. Look at Baroness Hale, Spider-Woman. She's just as much as capable of making the laws as anybody in the European Court in Strasbourg. But I want our own parliament to be sovereign. As Bill Cash would say, who was a great mentor of mine when we were in Parliament and we were doing the Rwanda rebellion, voting against the government at the time under Rishi Sunak. We want members of Parliament making clear and unambiguous laws, which the courts then implement. And with every passing month, I feel more strongly that we want to restore the constitution that we had before Tony Blair. And that means leaving the European Court of Human Rights. It means repealing the Human Rights Act. It means repealing a whole series of other laws, which may have had noble intent, whether it's the Equalities Act, the Human Rights Act, the Climate Change Act, but which have had the effect of undermining the sovereignty of Parliament, of making it immensely difficult for ministers, even those ministers who, like Margaret Thatcher and many of hers, are gripped with the desire to change this country for the better, make it immensely difficult for them to get on and do the job that's necessary. And that's why I've advocated some kind of great reform act, a great repeal act, as the first and most important piece of legislation of the next Conservative or centre-right government, where we wipe the slate clean. We get rid of that whole Blairite inheritance and restore our constitution to what it was in the 1980s, in the 1990s, before that terrible Blairite government, and make good on something that, frankly, Conservative governments failed to do. Because it should have been something that those Conservative governments did do, but they didn't. So we've got to step up and do it now. Now, I wanted to say something about the state of the country, because rather like your introduction, I think Britain is in a mess right now. I really do. And it pains me to say that, as it would have done Margaret Thatcher. We don't take pride and pleasure in our country in decline. It pains me to see Britain in decline, as I know it did Margaret Thatcher in the 1970s. And the situation today is akin to that, except in some respects I think it's worse than the state of the country in the 1970s. Because for all the failings of Britain then, the out-of-control trade unions, the economic decline, the terrible state of the public finances, Britain was a more united country than it is today. The effect of mass migration over the course of the last 25 years, and Tony Blair was the founding father of that, has left Britain fundamentally divided. And that's got to change. As I see it today, there's almost a series of wildfires now, where you've got terrible demographics, out of control migration, the small boats crisis, a broken state that doesn't seem to be able to achieve anything anymore. You've got this lack of pride, the infestation and degradation of our institutions like schools, museums, universities by ideology that seems to loathe our country. You've got what I call asymmetric multiculturalism, where we pride every single culture other than our own. We fly the flags of Gaza and Pakistan, but not the flag of the United Kingdom or the cross of St. George. We have weak economic growth as a result of not building anything, of judges overturning every project here, there, and everywhere. We have a mad net zero policy, which Ed Miliband is pursuing on steroids, which means that we are impoverishing our own people and deindustrializing our country. We've got the rise of the bureaucratic state and quangos that are destroying accountability to Parliament and to the people. We've got to fix Britain. That's what we've got to do. We've got to be painfully honest about the mistakes of the last Conservative government, and I've sought to do that. The Conservative government did let Britain down. We've got to change the Conservative Party if it's going to survive. And it's quite obvious that it hasn't changed enough in the last year. It's got to be a fundamentally different party, which demonstrates to the public that it's learnt its mistakes. And then it's got to put itself at the service of the British people to come forward with serious answers to the big challenges facing the country, and to once again be walking in step with the public, be responding to the sentiment of the British public, to be the trade union of the British people. That is what the Conservative Party has done when it's been at its best. And when we failed to do that, we suffered our worst defeats and biggest reverses. The only future for the party now is to change fundamentally. That's what I want it to do. That's what we have to do now. Pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down, get back into business, and to be the standard bearer for traditional conservative values in this country once again. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you to this organisation. I was 6 years old when Margaret Thatcher delivered the Bruges speech. I was quite a precocious child, but I can't pretend that I was there hanging on her every word. But I do remember when I read the speech when I was a teenager, and I thought it was one of the great speeches of all time. And it was right that you set up this organisation to honour that, to carry the torch for everything that she stood for. And I think it was only a few days ago, wasn't it? It was the 20th of September. I think it was the 20th she gave the speech, wasn't it? You should know this.
I think you're right.
You should know this. I think it was the 20th of September. But in this year where we mark the 100th anniversary of her birth, the 50th anniversary of her becoming leader of the Conservative Party, we should take strength from her, everything that she stood for, and above all, the fact that against all the naysayers, she did turn the country around. She arrested the decline of this country. So if she can do it, we can do it as well. It's on our generation now to fix Britain, to arrest our decline, and to make Britain greater still. Thank you very much indeed.